Hi, sister. Today I'm going to be bringing forward a teaching and transmission on the importance of building your etheric temple if you are called to resurrect your true new earth temple that is connected to all of your different lineages that you hold of the different magic and medicine that is connected into your DNA, and why women right now are being called into building their etheric temples. So, if you have been following my journey, you know I've spoken about this here and there. I haven't really shared a lot publicly around the resurrection of New Earth temples at this time because it's been a lot of behind the scenes work that I've been doing. But as we start to move toward the equinox and we are moving into this deeper portal of womb birthing, God guided me and brought in a lot of inspiration for me to record this teaching and share it for those of you that are on this path of resurrecting your temple, to hold your offerings, and of course, to hold the depth and the impact of your legacy. So there's a difference among the lineages of women where some women who are here on this earth to build and leave a legacy are doing it in a way that is aligned with their own understanding within their own soul's blueprint, right? And so they can build and, create impact and legacy in certain architectures and systems, okay? And then there are those of us who have very ancient, magical, primordial DNA of the Grail, of the Rose lineage, of the Sophianic Christ lineages that are being asked to resurrect our temple spaces etherically, and then for some of us also to build in the physical, to actually build the temple, to build the sanctuary, to build the healing experience in the physical, right? Having a space where you offer your temple. It's like literally building your temple, right? Hosting it, holding it on the grids itself in the physical, right? So for those of us that are holding the architecture in our light bodies that are connected to these temples, we're going to have a different destiny path that's connected into our offerings and our legacy and what we're here to birth and build to contribute to the new earth, to the new architecture that's arriving. And we are going to be connecting into a primordial frequency of the Holy Mother that we receive access through initiation and through anointed spaces that allow us to resurrect our etheric temple. And that is what I am here to do, what I'm commissioned to do. So for those of you who maybe are new to my world or don't know the story of Sanctuary of Sophia, which is, of course, my temple, right? Sanctuary of Sophia is the Holy Mother sanctuary for her daughters. And so if you resonate with me and my frequency and my work, and you resonate with Sophia and the Sophianic lineages of the Grail, the Rose lineage, right? The mermaids, Magdalene, of course, White Buffalo Calf Woman, right? These Grail queens, the true divine feminine leaders that are connected through the bloodlines of Christ Sophia, there is an extension, an invitation here from my temple to you to just feel into this transmission, because my temple is holding the architecture and the spaciousness. I'm like listening very carefully here to like what God wants me to share. It's holding the architecture and the spaciousness and the containment to initiate women into building their own etheric temples, resurrecting the temple through their own remembrance, and also through the resurrection of their own holy body, and to then resurrect the temple on the grids that is specifically connected to like all of the magical lineages and the medicine that you keep and that you're here to birth into the world, that God wants you to bring forward into the world for all the people that you're meant to serve, and how your temple in itself is an anchor point on the grids of what it holds and what it represents. So Sanctuary of Sophia is, you could think of it as like the mother hub where, oh, interesting, my internet just kind of glitched out there for a minute. Okay. So you can think of it as Sanctuary of Sophia is the Holy Mother sanctuary for her daughters, right? It's an etheric temple that I resurrected in 2022. And then from there have been holding containers and journeys and resurrecting architecture for the lineages of the Grail. And of course, I went on my, over 2-year grid work journey all around the country to support the resurrection of Sanctuary of Sophia and all of the women that I'm here to support within the lineages that weave through it, right? So there is a container that I've built, and it's called Temple Legacy Building. It's a private container. It's its own architecture, and it is designed to support you in the resurrection of your temple. And so with that, it's like there are sister temples now that have been resurrecting up and are in current process of being resurrected around the grids, around the globe, that are connected in to Sanctuary of Sophia, which is connected into Sophia herself, right? Holy Mother. So as I was in prayer with all of this, God wanted me to bring forward just a little bit more of like an explanation in terms of like how this works, because it's a very multidimensional process. And the next wave of women to resurrect their temples is coming forward. So that might be you if you're being called into this and you can feel like your cells responding, like, yes, do you have a temple to resurrect? So you'll know that you have a temple to resurrect because you'll feel your assignment, your mission is like holding all of this energy, and it needs a place to go. So until your etheric temple is built, all of those assignments won't be able to drop in, because you need to actually build the etheric space for it to be held, the containment. So your temple in itself is like a living library, and it will hold all of your assignments, things that you're meant to birth into the world. It also is the home and you can think of it as like the temple of your organic abundance as well, of your organic abundance of how you use your gifts, how you share your medicine, your magic, whether that's through, offerings online, in person, through the books that you're meant to write, through the music you're meant to create, through, being a teacher or a healer, being in that temple priestess, oracle, medicine woman, artist that you are. Your etheric temple is an extension of you that's literally its own architecture and container that holds all of that. And so a lot of times women who are destined for this, like how I was, and then I went through my own initiation. No one taught me this. This is part of my initiation to resurrect my own temple. And I received the entire codex of how to do it. I did it. And then after years of temple tending and doing all these things, God said it's time to teach women and help women resurrect doing this. And it was actually part of the initial resurrection where God said, you're going to be helping women do this at some point, fast forward, 2 years, 3 years later, it's happening. So if you can feel like your essence, your reclamation, all of your codes, your keys, your teachings, right? Because the path of divine feminine reclamation is you're reclaiming, you're remembering all of it, right? We're moving the veils of amnesia, the spells, we're reclaiming soul parts, we're reclaiming our quanta, our essence, we're reclaiming our wombs, which is a huge part of temple legacy building. Womb sovereignty is such a important piece to be able to then birth your temple. It's all interconnected, right? So you are here to literally resurrect your temple that holds all of the different lineages that you carry from this bloodline, but also multidimensionally. So I'm talking about different, lifetimes, like from Lemuria. You could think of it also connected to perhaps you were a priestess in Egypt or in Avalon, right, in Ireland. If you are connected to Mu or even Atlantis. Although I will say, for the majority of women who are drawn to me, we are holding that ancient Lemurian Mu energy more than the Atlantis energy. It's, I'm very watery, right? Mermaid, Magdalene mermaid lineage, right? So, there's also a lot of Grecian temple architecture, Venus, Venusian, right? So many of the women who are called to work with me are like holding these shared lineages of Magdalene and of the Grail, the Rose lineage, and then going deeper into it. It's like, oh yeah, connecting into like Joan of Arc, White Buffalo Calf woman, right? The Lemurian lineages of the mermaids, and so many more, right? There's so many lineages that we all carry and share. And so when you resurrect your etheric temple, you are calling in all of your guardians, all of the medicine, all of the magic that you hold, and you're giving it a place to go and then to begin to integrate. And so it's part of your body as the temple as well. So it's a very multidimensional process. And then when your temple is resurrected, there's a certain grid point that your temple's on. And we work with that grid in order to resurrect the temple and that architecture. And then when that is architected and it is anointed, then all of these things will start to flow in: your mission, your assignments, deeper abundance, right? Connections, collaborations, ideas, inspiration, womb flow, because you have the storehouse, you have the container for the temple to actually exist and hold it. So the beautiful thing is, and I was just sharing this the other day with a sister who I'm currently midwifing through her temple resurrection, is that once your temple is built, you don't have to keep everything kind of like in your head or like, oh, is that going to weave back in? No, like it literally holds it. So it holds your downloads, it holds your um like the threads that you're weaving, your projects that you're working on, and then you can build things out within the temple just like you would in the physical, right? Like rooms of a house, right? You have like your bedroom, you have your living room, you have your studio, right? And then all of these different aspects of your temple start to come alive. The temple itself, the etheric temple, it's alive, it has its own consciousness as an extension of you, but the temple itself has its own consciousness that allows you to work with it. So you're not fully, I don't want to say responsible, because as a steward, you are responsible. But you're not the only aspect like holding it all together. Like you and your temple are co-creating. And so the temple guardians and of course, your highest self, your God self are all streamlining things into the temple. And then you're receiving and you're working with the temple. So it's a very different experience. And especially if you're here to have like a soul-based business, right? I don't even like using that word, right? God had me change it over to ministry, like Sanctuary of Sophia is now a ministry, right? So if you're here to have a service offering to share with the world, it's going to allow you to receive the architecture that actually works for you and your soul. That's a huge piece of temple legacy building. Is your temple is the container that is allowing all these things to drop in and then birth through you into what you're here to share with the world. And so women like us, we can't do business like the majority of women, even women who are doing soul-based businesses. If you are here to bring forward your teachings and your lineages that are specifically connected into a resurrection of a temple space, it's going to be a lot more challenging to do that without having the etheric temple built. And that's not to say that's for everyone, because of course you can run a business or do things like without a temple space, but there's something specific that changes once your temple is built and you have that support system, because it is a support to you. It supports you, it supports your clients, And it also supports the grids and then all of the people that are connected into that. So it's a much deeper thing than just you resurrecting your temple for you. It is a leg. That's why that's why the codex is temple legacy building, because it's actually part of your legacy, which of course means the impact of everyone that your temple is meant to impact and to touch. So with all of that being said, I just want to bring through some medicine that could be helpful for you if you like to tell like you're being called into this. Well, first of all, it's like a very felt experience. You'll just kind of know like, well, of course I'm here to resurrect my temple. Like, of course, because you'll have this like deep knowing that you're here to do something that goes beyond the scope of what you've seen, and no one else is doing this. No one else is commissioned to do the temple resurrection. That's what God has shown me. It's like a very specific architecture that I hold, that the sanctuary holds, in order to honor the sovereignty and to also like completely, heal and dismantle any kind of hybridization. So that way your temple can not be desecrated or hybridized, meaning copied, right? Because that's a big part of it, of as you go through, and this is something that I've been navigating for many years now, of like my content, my copy, my architecture, my programs, my branding, like things just people coming in and just like taking it and putting it out as their own. This is something that, of course, is just a part of the experience, but especially for highly coded women of the feminine Christ lineages, um, this is something that we need to be actively clearing and to say no to that. No, my temple will not be hybridized. No, that is not allowed. I do not, tolerate that, and really creating a sacred boundary around that. And so part of temple legacy building is building an architecture where you're in right relationship with your own sovereignty. And so even though I'm midwifing you through your process, I'm also that safe space where your ideas and your creation comes through, and it's not being how do I say this, like exposed to energies that are trying to manipulate it or hawk into it or do anything like that, right? Because if you've been on this path for a while, on the Sophianic path for a while, you know that hybridization, and womb hybridization especially, is a huge aspect of reclamation, of like reclaiming our power from that, and like not having our stuff cloned or modified or hijacked or inverted. People have taken my content, my architecture, like I put out a program and then like a few weeks later someone puts something out similar, but it's inverted and it's holding different things, because of course they can't actually replicate it fully, but they're trying to, based on whatever energy is kind of working through them, and whether they're conscious of it or not. This has happened. And of course, I'm not the only woman that this happens to. Maybe you've gone through it yourself as well. So a part of temple legacy building is to also build in the architecture where hybridization can no longer impact you, even if there are attempts to do so, but also creating the architecture of knowing that there is a reverence and a reciprocity of women who can come into your temple and honor your work without the hybridization of it. And so allowing them to resurrect their own codes and being in their sovereign autonomy of who they are and their codes, as well as you being in your sovereign autonomy too, right, with your own codes. And so this is also something that we're actively weaving in temple legacy building, in the private container where it's safe for you to resurrect your temple, knowing that I'm not here to take anything from you. I don't need your power or your magic, right? I have my own, right? It's the same with destiny, right? I am not here to try to, replicate or go on the same destiny path as you, because you have your own destiny, and so does your temple. So your temple has its own destiny of what it's here to represent, who it's here to serve, the impact it's meant to make, and how God wants to use you as the instrument, the steward of the temple, and how God wants your temple to serve in the co-creation of God's highest timeline for humanity, new earth, God's kingdom. So these temples are starting to resurrect. I've been working with several women this year on this, and right now I am opening up the wait list. The next opening is going to be in October. So I'm booked through with this because I only like to work with a certain amount of women with their temples, because it requires, um, yeah, such presence. And it's not something that is like a normal type of like private journey container. It's like a whole nother layer of architecture. And yeah, so I have it placed where it's in a way that I'm really just like midwifing one woman at a time in her temple. And then it's like this flow that happens. And all of these temples are also connected in terms of like the activation of new earth. So when one temple goes up, it starts to activate and call in the next temple based on what the collective field can hold and accommodate, based on grid work projects going on and where the Sophianic body is within the overall ascending process. So it's very connected to grid work missions too, which is something, of course, I'm doing inside the cathedral. So it's all interconnected. So right now, the next wave of women are being called in. Oh, I can feel it in my womb. And so God wanted me to record this, to put this out there in case this is for you. Of course, this isn't for everyone. However, if you are feeling this pull of like knowing, like, what would it feel like to resurrect my temple, to call in all of my magic, my teachings, my scrolls, my memories, my records, the temple arts, right, that will come in. A lot of times your temple art practices and your memories won't come in until the temple is actually built. So that way it can be kept safe, and then you resurrect and you start to reclaim, and then the temple protects and holds all of that for you, right? Just like it would in the physical. So feeling into that of like, is this something? How's my womb responding to this? Do I feel called to build an etheric temple for my legacy? Can I feel my ancestors and my guardians and God calling me into this? Do I have a remembrance of what it was like to tend a temple, to be a temple priestess, to be the steward of a temple in ancient Greece and Lemuria, in Egypt, in Avalon, right? All over the world, right? In Africa. And Uriata Sariya, Ura Sakia Shiata Sariya. And if so, like, oh my gosh, like, how is your body feeling right now? Is your heart opening? A temple space is also the permission to dream and to birth with your womb, and to really reclaim all of your temple codexes. And so temple legacy building also comes with the Temple Priestess Power Ceremony, which I held last year to reclaim all of your codexes from your different temple lifetimes, more or less. So that ceremony is a reclamation ceremony that's part of this. And so the way that temple legacy building works is it's a private one-to-one journey. So I architect your own private temple space inside Sanctuary of Sophia to hold you, which is a very profound experience because you're being held by the sanctuary to build and resurrect your own temple. So it goes very deep. So it's a private one-to-one journey, and there are different tiers to it. And there are layers to it because it happens in layers. And so as soon as you start feeling the call, and when you know, like, okay, I want to take the next step, I want to feel into this, things are going to start to come in for you. You'll start to have remembrance. And there will be this like calling, right? There'll be this soul calling you home, because this is such a deep soul remembrance. Because as you resurrect your temple, you are resurrecting like those parts of yourself. So it's the deepest journey that I offer within Sanctuary of Sophia. And I can honestly say it's one of the most magical and rewarding experiences, because you are literally like you are co-creating it. So I'm midwifing you through the process and bringing through the activations and the instructions and like allowing God to support you. And I'm holding you through it, but you're the one that's receiving the name of your temple. You're receiving the codes, what it feels like. You're receiving all of these pieces. You're receiving the records. You're receiving all of these things. And then as the initiated priestess who is here to support, I mean, it's a huge part of my mission is to support women in resurrecting their temples. And we're just getting started right now. Like I'm there to midwife you, to mentor you, to hold space for you, and to allow your process to unfold organically. And every woman is different based on her gifts and what she is resurrecting. So it's a very unique process and it's really special. And yeah, it's an incredible experience to walk through. When I did it on my own, I didn't have anyone doing it for me. I was my own midwife and I was remembering on my own. And it was a very deep initiation for me to then be able to bring this forward years later. And I'm just so honored to do it because I know how special and sacred it is. And to hold space for another woman, it's just, yeah, it's some of the most rewarding and beautiful work I have the privilege to facilitate. So if you are being called into it, there is an application process, and the application itself is so activating because when you are feeling the call and you want to learn more and you fill out the application, everything starts to like awaken within you. Like the application itself is like a remembrance as like I'm asking you these questions and you're reflecting. Um, and then there are different, different tiers based on where you're at and what you want to step into. So the most popular tier is the 6-week journey. So there's 3 tiers. The first tier is the deep dive session that initiates the process. That's a 90-minute session, and that initiates the process. The second tier is a 6-week private journey with me, where there are 4 different sessions, including the deep dive session, as well as messaging mentorship support throughout the 6 weeks, where we actually go into resurrecting, architecting the temple, and bringing it all in. And so that is what I would recommend. Truly, I like to give the offering of the first tier in case you want some more spaciousness before going into the 6-week. But the 6-week container really allows the fullness of it to be fully experienced throughout that container. And then there's also a 3-month journey where we go through the entire process of resurrecting your temple. And then over the 3 months, we're doing that. But then I'm also helping you structure your offerings, birth your new offerings according to your temple, and working with your organic blueprints, all of that that's coming in. So that's a deeper journey of like actually bringing forward the offerings and the abundance codes and templates that are connected into that. So there's 3 different tiers, and yeah, I'm opening up the wait list now. So if you are feeling called to learn more about it, you can send me a message. I don't have this publicized anywhere on my website or anything like that. You have to reach out to me for the information, and you can reach out and I can share a little bit about it with you. I can give you the application. You can see, what's feeling aligned for you. And then we can go from there. Yeah. So just feeling so grateful because I know that as more temples arrive, it just means that the mother is becoming more present on this planet through her daughters, through us. And there's a lot of magic resurrecting right now. And the temples that are going to be resurrecting just hold so much that hasn't been able to be witnessed yet on the planet yet. There comes a point where we can't bring these things forward until the collective is ready because it'll be too much for the collective. So we have to wait until the collective is at certain points and the planet is, vibrating at a certain frequency and certain grid work missions are complete before we do this. So it's like, it's a divine timing, it's a sequencing that happens. And then as every woman resurrects her temple and they're, popping up all over the globe, um, it starts to anchor in more and then we can retrieve more. And so Sanctuary of Sophia is like the hub and it's like supporting all of these like sister temples. Yeah, so it's a really, really beautiful thing. So if you are feeling called, I'd love to connect with you. There's no pressure. We can just have a conversation. So send me an email. You can send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram. I'm also going to link another video that I recorded back in January of this year to give a little more detail about it that could be helpful for you as well. And there's also a testimonial below of a sister who I supported with her temple, just to give you just a deeper understanding around the process, because it is very multidimensional. And yeah, it's just a deeply felt experience. So, all right, blessings, sister, and I will see you soon.